Get ready to be spooked. In this episode, we're diving into the world of classic horror literature. We'll be discussing that's right, five must read novels perfect for this Halloween season. Join us as we explore these timeless tales of suspense, terror, and the macabre. Pull up your chair, charge up your laptop, your phone, your TV, whatever you're watching on, and let's have a very happy Halloween. Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Airy. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture, including the spooky stuff. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you're feeling extra terrified, ring that little bell if you're watching on YouTube to get notifications whenever I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. Okay, so everyone knows that I'm a bit of a reader. I talk about it all the time. I reference classic stories when I talk about pop culture. And of course, I am a big fan of Halloween. One year, Halloween, I did a whole retrospective on the themes of The Nightmare Before Christmas. But today I decided to do a little bit more of a traditional spooky sort of story, where this time I discuss multiple stories. So instead of exploring just one, we're going to look at five, and I'm going to recommend them to you. And I know it's Halloween today, but I still thought it would be fun in case you wanted to add these to your list. Now on StudioJakeMedia.com, which is my website, I've been doing the Bad Seed series. Now, I wasn't able to track down the TV film because it's just really hard to find. I even tried to just look for a DVD of it because it was released once on DVD, but people who had it wanted way too much on it in places they were selling it. So I replaced the TV version of The Bad Seed with The Good Son. Now, they claim it's not based on The Bad Seed, but the themes are there. So I wrote movie reviews on all of the Bad Seed adaptions, again, except for the TV movie. And today for Halloween, I covered The Bad Seed Returns, which is a sequel to the modern remake. But for today, here on the StudioJake vidcast, I'm going to be talking about my five favorite horror classic novels. Now, these are not presented in any particular order. Okay, so up first, we have the book that some say set off the vampire craze, even way back when it was published during the Victorian era, and this is, of course, Dracula. Dracula is a 1897 Gothic horror novel by Irish author Bram Stoker. It introduced the world to none other than Count Dracula and established many conventions and subsequent vampire fantasy. The novel tells the story of Dracula's attempt to move from his home in the castle in Transylvania to London so that he can find new blood and new people to hunt and spread his undead curse. We then see the ultimate battle between good and evil in the form of Dracula taking on a small group of women and men under the direction of vampire hunter Abraham Van Helsing. And of course, Dracula has been presented in so many media forms. Of course, Bela Lugosi is one of the most popular in the black and white film called Dracula. Francis Ford Coppola retold the story of Dracula where Gary Oldman portrayed Dracula. I have seen so many versions of the character. Christopher Lee, yes, that Christopher Lee who was in the Star Wars prequel series and in Lord of the Rings, where he played Count Dooku and Saruman, respectively. He portrayed Dracula in a whole series of films from a movie studio called Hammer Horror, and he would also portray Dracula in some non-Hammer horror films as well, but this is one of the most one. That's why when I watch something like, say, Twilight, I'm kind of like, oh, this is so disappointing because I read the original thing. Now, he wasn't the first person to write a novel about a vampire, but his was certainly the most popular and it set off that craze. And of course, Dracula was the basis for the German film Nosferatu, which you can watch for free here on YouTube. Up next, we have what is really the duality of man, and that is none other than the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was written by Robert Louis Stevenson, who is a very popular British novelist. I highly recommend you check out his other works besides The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because he was a fantastic author. This famously explored humanity's basest desire and capacity for evil. It has become synonymous with the idea of split personality as well. It's not just a moral tale by any means, it is a dark psychological fantasy, and it is a product of its time, drawing on contemporary themes of class, evolution, criminality, and secret lives. And this one hasn't been adapted into film as much. I've certainly seen a handful of them. I've never seen one where I just thought, oh yeah, this is a perfect adaptation. Many people have tried, but they often mischaracterize or misunderstand the themes that Stevenson was trying to promote as Jekyll and Hyde, or in the form of Jekyll and Hyde, I should say. But I highly recommend you read it. Read the classic one. Don't just see the movie in this one, because it's a fantastic tale. It is incredibly well written. Up next, we have The Invisible Man. So this one is spine-tingling and entertaining. The Invisible Man is a science fiction classic and a penetrating, unflinching look into the heart of human nature. To its author, H.G. Wells, the novel was as compelling as a good, gripping dream. But to generations of readers, the terrible and evil experiment of the demented scientist Griffin has conveyed chilling nightmare of believable horror. An atmosphere of ever-increasing suspense begins with the arrival of a mysterious stranger at an English village inn, and builds relentlessly to the dark terror of a victim pursued by a maniacal invisible man. The result is a masterwork, a dazzling display of the brilliant imagination, psychological insight, and literary craftsman that made H.G. Wells one of the most influential writers of his time. Now, Universal Pictures, who also did the aforementioned Dracula adaptation with Bela Lugosi, they also have an adaptation of The Invisible Man, and it's the closest to the novel that I have seen. I've seen many adaptations of The Invisible Man. Blumhouse did an Invisible Man adaptation a couple of years ago, which was pretty good, but it modernizes the tale and eliminates some of the characters in it and just focuses on a wife being terrorized by her abusive husband in the form of the Invisible Man. The one made by Universal Pictures, it was more connected to the novel. They did combine a few of the characters in The Invisible Man, and they also changed the climax of the story of The Invisible Man, but I still recommend that one. Now, this one is a little tricky because even though the novel is in public domain now, it's been kind of back and forth with the rights, because somehow Universal Pictures will attempt to sue anyone who uses the name Griffin, not necessarily the Invisible Man, but just characters within their movie, which I think is ridiculous. If you adapted a copyright-free work or a public domain work, you shouldn't have any ability to maintain the rights. You can the movie itself, sure, but not of the characters. That's ridiculous. But that's how it goes sometimes. Hopefully, courts will start giving companies slap on the wrist to do that, and we can get a really good solid adaptation of The Invisible Man. How could this one not be on the list? But that is Frankenstein, or Frankenstein, the Prometheus Man. This is another one that I read when I was in high school, and this one actually made me think because the themes in it are so complicated, but it really launched the career of one Mary Shelley. So she began writing the instant bestseller Frankenstein when she was only 18. At once a gothic thriller, a passionate romance, and a cautionary tale about the dangers of science and playing God, in my opinion, Frankenstein tells the story of committed scientist Victor Frankenstein, obsessed with discovering the cause of generation and life and bestowing animation upon lifeless matter. Frankenstein assembles a human being from stolen body parts, but upon bringing it to life, he recoils in horror at the creature's hideousness. Tormented by isolation and loneliness, the once innocent creature turns to evil and unleashes a campaign of murderous revenge against his creator, Frankenstein. This is something that you run into a lot. People think the monster's name is Frankenstein. No, the creator is Frankenstein. The book is really good. It's very thought-provoking. I highly recommend it. I haven't really seen a decent adaptation of Frankenstein. Again, Universal Pictures has one where Boris Karloff plays Frankenstein. That one is probably the best. It certainly, to me, brought the character to life in a good way. Now, TV shows have taken the Frankenstein trope. You've got Herman Munster, who's supposed to be like a Frankenstein type character. But yeah, I really think it's funny that we haven't really seen a decent adaptation. Some people have tried to remake the novel, diving in more to the horror. The sad thing, too, about this particular book is Mary Shelley wrote this book. She was with a conclave of other writers, and they were all writing, and this is how this idea came to her when they were all hanging out, I think at a beachside. She was with her affair partner, Percy Shelley, who was still married but hanging out with Mary Shelley. They had gotten married kind of in a weird ceremony, and they were all hanging out with a bunch of other authors. There are rumors that, shall we say, psychedelics were involved. She saw a lightning strike that scared her, and that's when she came up with the idea for Frankenstein. What's really sad is when this book came out, it outsold anything that her, I guess, husband was writing, and that actually kind of put a strain on their relationship because her one book just decimated all of his. And it's really a shame that Percy Shelley was such a terrible human being, because he actually wrote my favorite poem that, of course, I've mentioned before here and on my website, StudioJakeMedia.com, is Ozymandias. But Mary Shelley, fantastic writer. I really wish she had written more in her lifetime. All right, last but certainly not least, we are to The Hound of the Baskervilles. So this actually was originally published in segments in the Strand newspaper, which published the Sherlock Holmes stories for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and this is, of course, a Sherlock Holmes mystery. It would go on to be published as a novel with the permission, of course, of Conan Doyle. The story goes that at Baskerville Hall on the grim moors of Devonshire, a legendary curse has apparently claimed one more victim. Sir Charles Baskervilles has been found slaughtered. There are no signs of violence, but his face is hideously contorted with terror. Years earlier, a hound-like beast with blazing eyes and dripping jaws purported to have torn out the throat of Hugo Baskervilles. As the spectral destroyer struck again, more importantly, as Sir Henry Baskervilles, younger heir to the estate, now in danger, enter the great detective Sherlock Holmes, summoned to protect Sir Henry from the fate that has threatened the Baskerville family. As Holmes and Watson begin to investigate, a blood-chilling howl from the fog-shrouded edges of the great Grippenmeyer signals that the legendary Hound of the Baskervilles is poised for yet another murderous attack in the short novel by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And of course, Sherlock Holmes is probably my favorite of British literature's fiction. I really love his stories. The Hound of the Baskervilles in particular has a special place in my heart. It's what inspired me to become an author myself. And I'm very excited. And I would like to thank Goodreads. Goodreads is where I got most of the information. In fact, the descriptions of the books I read directly from Goodreads. They are a fantastic resource for readers and authors alike if you're trying to do research on things like classic novels. They can even show you different sort of editions of the book. But what did you think? Let me know in the comments below. What's your favorite classic horror novel? By classic, I mean really old. So nothing that came out in the 2000s or the 2010s or the 2020s. At least go into the 90s if you're going to. Let me know in the comments. I would love to know, what are yours? What do you plan to read as the lead up to Halloween next year? If you like that video, be sure to give it a like. Share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment to what you think, and of course, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. If you would like to support me beyond just video sharing, click on the link to my locals community. It's in the description of the video. It's kind of like a combination of Patreon and Discord, where you can chat with me, you can sign up for a monthly subscription, or just send me tips for the articles I post there, including exclusive ones that are for the locals community. If you would like to support me even further, pick up one or all of my novels, Cacophony, The Seven Royals, All Good Things, The Seven Royals, Breaking the Stars, and my latest romance novella, Blessed Child. Get them all. Head on over to Amazon, leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake. Oh, and of course, Happy Halloween. I've been living life right like I